There are many jobs that when you start them, you are very often expected to do certain types of training. We've all gone through inductions, for example, HR inductions. We've all done them, in our time, in our careers. We've all been there. We've all done it. And you have to do it as part of your employment. And I have to say this, I have yet to really see. Although I'm sure someone will say, "Oh, actually, no, you've missed that case." I have yet to see a case of where one of these gammony reform type people has taken on a new job and then during HR induction, um, decided that no, doing diversity training was just a step too far for them and they were going to refuse it and then ultimately end up losing their job because it is part of, well, their requirement to do so. I have yet to see that case happen. It might have happened and I might have just completely missed it. But do let me know if that has happened and that has been the case. But we have seen a lot of these new reform councillors say that they are going to refuse to take all the diversity training that they are, well, required to do for being a councillor. And here's the thing, if this was a job and they refused to do diversity training, well, it would be a trip to the HR office and it would probably be, I don't know, maybe a verbal warning to begin with saying, hey, this is part of your job requirements. You've got to do the training. Maybe they would go do the training at that point. And if they continued to refuse, well, they would probably be let go. So we are now starting to see some of these reform councillors openly refuse taking their diversity training. So I have to wonder, generally, at what point do we start to see these reform councillors maybe even lose their position because they refuse to take this diversity training? Are they going to really go the distance on this? Because guess what? They are required to do this training. You can't just not do it. And we have seen some reform councillors make a big hoo-ha that they're not going to do this training, but all of a sudden they've gone very quiet on that, which makes me think some of these reform councillors have actually done that diversity training, and then just not really, shall we say, been that open or honest that they have actually done said diversity training. But we are now seeing in West Northamptonshire Council some reform councillors refuse to take diversity training. Now, what's going to happen because of this? What's going to be the outcome of this? Don't know. But I think they could very well end up losing their positions. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see if they're willing to take this to court, because I have a feeling the court will side with the council on this one. That is for sure. So anyway, before we do go on into this, please do remember to click the like, share, and subscribe button. Down below, of course, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, a YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well, the YouTube subscription, where you can join that as well. So let's crack on then into this, coming from the Northamptonshire Chronicle and Echo. Oh, oh, we're doing lots of local newspapers and news sites, aren't we? Anyway, Labour now calls for the West Northamptonshire Council boss to take action as Reform refuses diversity training. So, the Labour leaders on the West Northamptonshire, hang on, let's get to that, West Northamptonshire County Council, or the WNC, have now called on the Chief Executive to take action over the Reform UK administration decision to boycott the equality and diversity training. The co-letter, signed by Labour leader Sally Keeble and her deputy Bob Pulser, came after WMC leader Mark Arnold announced that his group would now stand with Reform's national policy and not attend diversity or climate training arranged by the council. So bear in mind, this has been arranged by the council. This may very well be part of their requirements as a councillor to attend such training. Are they really going to stick to their guns and lose their position over this? Methinks they'll suddenly go quite quiet on this. Anyway, the councillors attended their first annual meeting last Thursday after Reform won a majority of seats in the local authority, making up 42 out of the 76 elected members in the chamber. The West North's Labour has criticised the boycott, claiming that without the training, councillors now will be less equipped to make decisions that comply with their equality duties and reference now public confidence in council services. I absolutely agree with that. That is that's what they should be doing. This is why they have to attend that training. That is why this training is put on. As a councillor, you have a duty in this regard. And it just goes to show you they're not serious about the job they've just taken on. The letter is now directed at the Chief Executive, Anna Earnshaw, that read, the refusal of the Reform councillors in West Northamptonshire now to undertake equality and diversity training flies in the face now of their legal duties as councillors. And there's the rub. As I said it would be, I thought that might be the case. If they've got a legal duty as a councillor to attend such diversity training, we'll see if they go the distance on this. I don't think they will. I think they'll quietly make a big hoo-ha about this and then quietly do the training, and then it will just get dropped. So it also calls now, of course, into question their commitment to ensure that everyone gets equal access to council services, which again, very, very true. If you are like this, refusing these amount of diversity and equality training, what is it going to be like when they maybe start damaging the opportunity for everyone to get equal access to services that the council offers? That's very true. What's going to happen then? They said this will now impact public confidence in the council services, especially now amongst the communities that have experienced discrimination and exclusion. Chris Keeble and Pursuer also now warned that the delays and extra costs now to the council if these decisions are now open to challenge. They also further asked Ms. Earnshaw what she would do to ensure that all members are now properly trained to make the decisions about their services that are now so crucial to the lives of people in West Northamptonshire. So, responding, of course, to the calls, Anna Earnshaw, the Chief Executive of the West Northamptonshire County Council, told the local democracy reporting service that, quote, the council offers a range of training to all councillors with a focus on how members and officers can work together effectively to ensure that we meet our public sector duties in the best interests of all our communities. Although this training is not compulsory and cannot be made mandatory, as the also the rub there as well. But is it legal or not? I mean, they've said that there's a legal responsibility. However, Chief Executive of the Council said it cannot be made mandatory. We'll see. We'll see what happens in this. The sessions so far, of course, have all been very well attended by our councillors, and the information covered is made available for all those who missed them. We will shortly now be running a session on safe and legal decision making, which will be cover now the council's equalities and public sector duties, and anticipate this will be well attended by members too. So this is also the interesting thing, because they are saying, "Oh yeah, we're not going to attend any, woke training." Well, Chief Executive of the Council has just said, "Hey, we've got this session about safe and legal decision making, which is going to include, their equalities and public sector duties? Are they going to suddenly get up and walk out of that? I don't know. Anyway, whilst, of course, we encourage our members to attend all the trainings, they should, they do not so. There are, of course, other ways that we can ensure that members and officers now comply with our duties to make lawful decisions. So basically, yeah, if you miss the training and you start doing unlawful stuff, we've got other ways to enforce that. We've got other ways to enforce that stuff. I would not be too surprised, as I've said before, and I've talked about this before in the past couple of videos, we've talked about this. Sooner or later, these reform councillors are going to start butting heads with other people in the council when they go, yeah, you can't do that. Or, yeah, if you do that, that's too unfiscally responsible. That is not a safe or legal decision to make. What happens then when they start butting heads? I guarantee you we're going to start seeing that soon. So, this would, of course, include ensuring that all decisions and reports now comply with our duties and consider any impacts that our legal and democratic services and officers are always presented now at their meetings. The officers provide professional and informed advice on any planned decisions or any announcements. Oh, and that's going to be interesting where they also start to have a go at the council officers saying, how dare you bring up such wokery at this meeting? And again, it's all performative. It's all performative. Bear in mind, them deciding not to do this is absolutely performative. It's not going to have, well, it probably will do in some areas, but it's not going to have a major impact on people's lives. But, getting rid of flood defense committees, that's going to have a major impact on people's lives. When you have these local Doge units being created that are literally going crazy, cutting anything they possibly can, that is going to have an effect on real people's lives. Meanwhile, of course, they're going to be like, don't look at that stuff. Just look at how anti-woke we are. Just don't look at that stuff. This is what it is all doing. It's why I've always said this culture war nonsense rots people's brains and it doesn't make us focus on the real stuff. And unfortunately, it has real world consequence because all those real things, like getting rid of flood defenses, these does that are just going to go cut probably some very vital services or get rid of, people that perform a really vital job in the council, but they just don't realize how vital that job is. And then they'll realize, just like Doge did in America, where they had to try and hire them back. Yeah, that's going to have some real world consequences. But, oh no, look how anti-woke we are. Well, all those disasters unfold. There's going to be some real world consequences on this. Really. And it is only a matter of time before it really starts hitting the fan. Because reality is a very harsh mistress. A very harsh mistress. Just as we saw with Brexit. When it comes to local council stuff, these reform people are going to start running into the wall of reality hard. Very hard indeed. Anyway, but let's finish this off. So the letter finished off from the head of the council saying our code of conduct policy applies to, of course, all members, and it requires them to comply with our equalities legislation in lawful decision making. So even then, they've got to apply to that equalities legislation, which might be why the Labour people initially said, under law, they are sort of, required to do this. That might be why, and their argument why they may have made that decision. But they finished on this. Part of our, of course, governance process now includes work to ensure the ethical frameworks are all applied now to decision making. The reform now has also been criticised by Labour, the Conservatives, and Liberal Democrats for not having a local manifesto, which, guess what? Same for all of them. Same for all of them. Are there any interesting comments? Someone having a go at reforms, ignorance on climate science. Um, Someone saying well done to reform, but then someone reminding them, but they are needed because all the council employees, not even the elected councillors, are required to abide by the legislation handed down to them by the government. So, how do councillors refusing to take part in this training will enable them to now better understand the constraints that these now people must work with at all times? They're sounding like a bunch of demonstrative toddlers now at play school. And someone else brings up a very good point here. This is a good point. This is a good comment, actually. So, complying with the law is brainwashing, someone said into the initial comment. How about Birmingham City Council? That they went bankrupt because they failed to comply with equal pay legislation. Oh, those pesky legal details. Those pesky legal details indeed. That is very true. That is very true. The big reason why Birmingham City Council went bankrupt was because of all those equal pay disputes they had to pay out. It wasn't because of how badly they had been run by the Labour Council. No, it was all those equal pay disputes. And they told Michael Gove, who was in charge at the time, saying, hey, we've got all these payments we've got to make out. It's really stretching our financial situation at this point. We need some help. Michael Gove refused to help out. That's why they ended up going bankrupt, because they thought it would be a really good, wizard wheeze to let that, Birmingham City Council go bankrupt. So, will we be seeing lots of, I'm sure, those pesky legal quandaries and conundrums creep upon these reform councils? I think so. I think so. Because when you are refusing to follow these, which is your legal statutory duty to do so, law's going to find a way, and the law's going to come after you. And that's when reality is going to hit hard. So, as always, let me know what you think down to all this, because this, I think, is something that is going to be the real pain for reform when they start learning about the reality of this, about their statutory duties, what they are legally obligated to do. That's where you're going to see them really throw the pram out, because all this refusing to do diversity and equality training, they're already doing it in many of these sessions. They just don't realize it, as you said there, as you was shown by that, the head of the council saying, yeah, we've got this about how to make, safe and legal decisions. That includes elements to equality and diversity. I bet they attend that training session. But as always, let me know what you think down below about this. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.